The common reading is that this one is angry. It is not exactly wrong, which is what makes it useless. Anger is the part you can see from outside. It is the result, and describing a result tells you almost nothing about the machine that produced it. Here is the machine. Between something happening and this placement responding to it, there is almost no distance. Most charts have a gap in there, a second or two where the thing is being weighed. This one does not have the gap. Step back to the body of it. The moon governs the return, what a system does after something lands on it, and how long the return takes. Every chart runs one. The settings vary enormously, and almost nobody knows their own. So the reaction is not the problem. The missing gap in front of it is. And that same missing gap is why this placement is honest, fast, impossible to manipulate, and occasionally very hard to be in a small room with. Picture a first footprint in fresh ground. The step took a moment and cost nothing. What it leaves behind is a different matter entirely, and stays exactly where it was put. That distinction is the whole placement. And that leads straight to the thing that damages the most relationships here. 20 minutes after an argument, this placement is genuinely finished with it, not pretending, finished, and nobody else in the room is. The third chapter is about that gap. Aries is cardinal fire. Fire acts, cardinal starts. Together they make a system whose first move is a move. Not a thought about a move, not a reading of the room. The response leaves before the analysis has been asked for. And the method is discharge. Whatever arrives is spent immediately and completely. It does not store, it does not compound, it does not wait 3 days. It spends, and then it is empty, and then it is genuinely fine. This produces the fastest recovery time in the zodiac, and it is a serious advantage. No grudge to maintain, no reserve of old grievance, nothing carried into next year. Most charts would pay a great deal for that and cannot have it. The cost is arithmetic. A system with no gap in front of it will sometimes discharge at the wrong target, at full strength, for a reason that turns out to be incomplete. It clears in 10 minutes. The wall keeps the mark. There is a virtue built into the same speed. This placement cannot easily perform a feeling it does not have. Strategy requires a delay, and the delay is missing. What you get is what is actually there. At the moment, it is there. One correction worth making early. Heat is not cruelty. This placement will raise its voice and mean none of it in an hour, while a colder chart will say one level sentence and mean it for a decade. Loud and lasting are different measurements. Here is the answer to the first chapter. 2 clocks are running. On one, the thing is finished and filed and no longer interesting. On the other, it is still happening and will be tomorrow and possibly next month. So the honest sentence, I'm over it, lands as dismissal every time. Because being over it is not the same as it being over. One of those is a private condition. The other requires 2 people, and one of them has left. And the marks accumulate somewhere. This placement is not looking. Things said at full volume and meant for 90 seconds get kept in full by people who do not discharge the way it does. It is not being told about them. There is a second shadow, and it is quieter. Without something to push against, this placement gets restless and then goes looking. Not for trouble exactly, for friction. A calm month can be harder here than a difficult week. And apologies get skipped, not out of pride, but out of arithmetic. It is over on this end, so repairing it feels like reopening something already closed. The other person is standing at a gap in the bridge, waiting for the missing section. The correction is one sentence, and it costs nothing but timing. Not, I'm sorry you felt that, just, that landed harder than I meant, and I know it is still on you. Said once. It rebuilds the span in about 4 seconds. In closeness, this placement is refreshingly unambiguous. It says what it wants, when it wants it, and it will tell you where you stand without being asked twice. For anyone tired of guessing, that is an enormous relief. In conflict, it goes first and it goes now. Waiting is not a strategy here, it is an irritant. Small things get raised the day they happen, which is why this placement rarely arrives at a large argument carrying 9 older ones. And this is misread constantly, so it is worth stating plainly. It fights to finish something. It is not fighting to win, not building a case, and not keeping any of it. Once the pressure is out, its interest in the subject ends. Hold it next to the moon in Libra, at the other end of the axis. That one delays the reaction to preserve the peace, and pays for it later in things unsaid. This one spends immediately, and pays for it in things said. Same bill, different order. The distance version is less discussed. When a situation cannot be met head-on, this placement does not sulk. It leaves. Cleanly, sometimes permanently, and usually faster than anybody expected. Withdrawal here is not a threat, it is an exit. The partner this works with is someone who does not fold at the first raised voice, and does not escalate either. Something to strike that neither shatters nor strikes back. Given that, this placement is loyal to an unusual degree. At work, the strength is beginnings. This placement will start the thing everyone has been discussing for 6 weeks, on a Tuesday without permission. Organizations are full of people who cannot do that and quietly depend on someone who can. The weakness is the middle. Weeks 4 through 11, when the thing is no longer new and not yet finished, are genuinely difficult here. Not laziness. The fuel this placement runs on is ignition, and the middle does not supply any. Authority fails here in one specific way, and it is not the obvious one. It can take a hard no, immediately, and move on the same afternoon. What it cannot take is a slow maybe, the deferred decision, the answer that never quite arrives. Under a manager who withholds, this placement burns out faster than under one who is simply harsh. Being blocked is workable, being suspended is not. The system needs resolution more than it needs the answer to be favorable. The jobs that suit it share a shape, short cycles, visible results, and a problem nobody in the building has cracked yet. Give it those and it will outrun people with considerably more patience. Maturity here shows up as one unglamorous discipline, finishing something uninteresting. Not more of them, one. The first time this placement carries a dull thing all the way to the end, its relationship with its own word changes. The work is not slowing down. Every version of this placement that has been talked into being slower is a worse one, and usually a resentful one. The work is aim, same velocity, chosen target. In practice, it is small. One breath, installed where the gap should be. Not to reconsider, this placement will reach the same conclusion, but to choose who receives it. That single second is worth years of apologizing later. The second piece is remembering the other clock. When it is over on this end, ask whether it is over on the other. That question is unnatural here, and asking it is worth more than anything else on this list. Settled, this is the person others follow into something difficult because it goes first and does not require the outcome to be guaranteed beforehand. Courage is an unfashionable word. It is the accurate one here. The moon has no atmosphere and no wind. The boot prints left there in the last century are still exactly as they were pressed and will be for millions of years. Nothing up there tidies a mark away. Nothing softens the edge of it either. Hamal, the brightest star of Aries, is an orange giant, a star well past its fast years, burning wider and steadier than it once did. The fire is not gone. It has stopped needing to prove it is fire. That is the whole instruction.